Alrighty, we are here with Stephen Lease, co-founder and CEO, Chief Executive Octopus. That's the first one for the podcast. Of goodr, one of my favorite brands of shades out there. Same with my wife, same with my father-in-law, same with my cousin. We can get into all that story. But Stephen, so excited to speak to you in all 8 of your tentacles today. Thank you so much for joining. How are you doing today?
Oh, Max, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, right off the bat here, like you have one of the most fun and I know you even have 4 Fs brands that I've ever seen. So we're going to get to that. But a little birdie, or rather a little pink flamingo told me that not only are you a marathon runner, but you've even done an 100-miler, which
That is correct.
I'm ready to faint and end this episode. No. For anybody who's not familiar with that, obviously very daunting. How does a 100-miler actually work?
Yeah, I mean, I got into running late in life. So I didn't run my first marathon until I was 30, which is pretty interesting. And then that was in 2012. 5 years later, 2017, I just fell in love with running. That's the only way I can describe it. And I remember early on, I'd meet friends who run, and then they'd run 50-mile races. And I was all I would ever do is marathon. I remember legit saying out loud, "There's no fucking way I'm gonna do a 100-mile race. That's the stupidest shit I've ever heard of." And then a couple of years in, you're thinking I'm like, I don't know, you're in pretty good shape. Maybe you can do it. And then I find myself training. So it is 100 miles straight. You usually have a time cutoff depending on the race. You know, could be 24 hours, could be 35 hours. So you have to do it in that amount of time. And there are like little huts, so you can sleep. I didn't, and you run straight through the night. Start at 5 a.m. I ended, I don't know, maybe started at 5, ended at I don't even know, 9 or 10 the next morning. And you run, starting at 52 miles. I could have a pacer, so I had a crew with me that helped, and I did the Zion 100 back in 2017.
Well, that was the biggest thing I'm wondering about, just because I love sleep. I'm not very good at it, but I love sleep. How did you, so you didn't nap like at all in that, or like any downtime?
No, I mean, at aid stations, you'll sit down and rest. Sometimes, fuel up. I've paced people who have taken 20, 30-minute naps. So it is, you can kind of go each way. When I start moving, I do not like to stop. So I'm a push through person, especially when it comes to that. But I think my 100-mile ultra days are behind me, but you never know.
Yeah, that's what I tell people too. I'm like, yeah, I'm past that. I'm past that part of my my life. But I mean, a marathon or even a half marathon or a 10K, like it's strenuous enough. What did you find is the secret to unlocking the mind and the body to go such ultra distances, as they say?
Yeah, I mean, I ran a 50K in May with a bunch of people here at goodr. We do a group every year. And so I still have an active run practice. I don't put down the miles that I used to, and I don't go as fast as I used to. For me, I think why I gravitated towards running is I'm a high mover, always have been in life, and side hustles, always on my feet, hate waiting in line. And so it was a really good way to burn energy. Then it actually became moving meditation in a lot of ways. I find it very calming to my brain. And I think where I've netted out now, I have a group of people that I run with, so there's some great community there. But I think at its core, it is moving meditation for me.
Moving meditation, an alliteration for the ages, something you probably thought of in the middle of a 100-mile run. So thank you for that.
I mean, I have great ideas while I run. I mean, you asked how do I push through a run. I think the really interesting thing is, my job is never to sell anybody on long distance running. In fact, I think it's kind of fucking stupid sometimes out there. I'm like, what are we doing out here?
I didn't say anything.
Yeah, we are grinding out here. I love it. And I love any number of things. I love the moving meditation. I love how I break things into small goals to achieve them. And so from a push through standpoint, it's a really interesting question. I think that the nice thing is when I do long runs, I usually almost always do an out and back. So if I'm doing 20 miles, I go 10 miles out and I have to run 10 miles back. And so for me, once you run 10 miles, there's only one way you're getting home. That's turning around. And so how do I push through? I don't think about it at 20 miles. I think about it as one foot in front of the other.
I have to ask, which individual mile is the hardest in a 100-mile race?
Well, I mean, in any race, just in general, I kind of hate the first 2 or 3 miles. I hate but just body needs to warm up, and that kind of is a weird thing that happens with long distance runners. Is those first couple of miles are a grind. I mean, for me, it was mile 38 because the mile 38 it got hot. I didn't take care of my hydration. My legs locked up. I cramped over and fell face down in the dirt, and all the things went through my head, which were. You are a fucking idiot. Well, this was a complete waste of time. There's no way you're finishing this race today. And so I had to, I had to get my life together. And it took me about the next 30 minutes walking to an aid station, getting my life together and mentally in my life and hydrating. So yeah, mile 38 to 40 were the toughest.
Well, next time I'm doing my 5-minute warm-up jog on the treadmill before I do some weightlifting, I will think of this conversation, and I think it will just be enough motivation. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So running actually ties seamlessly into the goodr story. So let's get to goodr, alliteration chiming in there again. But what race was it for you that not only did you get the moving meditation idea together, but you got the idea for this potential business, which has now taken over your life in a wonderful mix of animals?
Yeah, it's we started in 2015, but I think the origin story, I would go back a little bit further. Right now, we're 9 years in. We're over 150 people. We're sold in 5,000 doors around the world. It's been wild, and a lot of people think it's like an overnight success, and there is some fairy tale-ness. Believe me, I live it. It's amazing, but goodr's the 6th company I either started or was a part of starting, and the other 5 were failures. So I think that's an important thing to acknowledge. I got really good. The first one's the hardest to fold. Then I worked in corporate America. I got really good at starting side hustles and understanding, okay, how can I spend enough, $5,000 and start a company, $10,000 and start a company and see if it's going to work. If it is, do more. If it not, fold. And so I was just in the mode of that, like really entrepreneur mindset had that. And in 2012, ran my first marathon, fell in love with it. And then 2014, 2 years later, I'm training for the Grand Traverse with one of my business partners, Ben. And it's my first ultra actually. It's 40 miles ish. It's from Crested Butte to Aspen in Colorado. And we're talking, when you do long runs with people, you just talk the entire time because there's nothing else to do. And we really just actually felt that there was nothing, there wasn't a run brand that spoke to us. And at that time, it wasn't sunglasses per se. We just didn't feel like any run brand represented fun and fashion. So we should start a run brand. So we just kind of kept talking about it. And then about 6 months later, I was training for LA Marathon with a group of 100 people in LA. And I'm looking at this group one day in January 2015, and I notice 80% of the people are not wearing performance eyewear. They're either wearing cheap $10 gas station sunglasses like I was, or they're wearing Ray-Bans, but they're not wearing expensive performance eyewear. And it hit me. I knew a little bit about the eyewear industry. I'm like, we should make fashionable sunglasses for runners. And so that's kind of where it was birthed. Asked 100 people that I knew that ran, hey, Blue Sky, what do you want from a pair of sunglasses? And we heard same 5 things categorically: look good, number 1, not slip when you sweat, or affordable, number 2, not slip when you sweat, number 3, not bounce when you move, number 4, and protect your eyes, number 5. And so we reverse engineered the company, and the whole brand was started on solving the problem, which was running sunglasses are ugly, expensive, and over-engineered. And so we made them affordable, stylish, and performance without the extra bullshit. So yeah, that's the super abridged version.
I appreciate the super abridged. Sounds like a version of a Zeppelin song from their 12th album. But when did it fully convict you that not just this was an idea that could help out runners and people looking for the 4 F's of goodr, but this needs to become my full-time thing? This might even be the most important thing I might do in my life.
For sure. I mean, I will say there was a couple of data points. It started as a side hustle. We launched product November 2015. And when you first launch product, I was a member of run groups. And so, you have this kind of swell of friends and family or people that buy. And then it's the holiday season. That was great. And then January comes in 2016, sales go to zero. And it was a side hustle for me, Ben and Carrie. They're my two co-founders. And like, all right, we at that point we actually started putting product on Amazon, and we started selling stuff, 10 units a day, 20 units a day to people that we didn't know. I'm like, okay, well, there's something here. Then January and February, it's the dead season for sunglasses just in general. Then we start selling a little more and a little more, and the business just kind of starts growing naturally. But it was a side hustle, and I cannot stress, Max, the importance of it being a side hustle because it was allowed to grow and evolve on its own. We didn't have to pay our rent we didn't have to make money to pay our rent. And flash forward to May of 2017, in that month, three things happened. It's kind of funny. We used to buy as much product as we can. We would sell out and then buy more. That's what we did. We used all the money we had. We'd even put more of our own personal money in, buy more, and we kept doing that. And it was great, but it was not a sustainable way to run a business. So in a week period, three amazing things happens. We got a giant shipment. We sold out again. It was crazy. We got a $100,000 line of credit from our bank, which is laughable now to us, but at that time it was like life changing. And we got better terms from our manufacturer. So right away, so that changed it. I quit doing all my side hustle the next week and focused on goodr full time.
Holy cow. That's a hell of a week or hell of a month.
Yeah, it was a hell of a month. And then you the last part of your question, which was, when did I think this was going to be, one of the most important things I did in my life? It's for sure it's for sure the most important thing that I've done in my life. I don't know, maybe I don't have like this. I do have a memory of this. 2000, we had our first office in 2017. 18 months later, it was 800 square feet. We moved to our second office. It was 6,000 square feet. We thought we'd never never go out of this space. And I remember this day we did a thing called goodr stock. We had about 25 people at the time, and just looking over this room, being like, wow, we did it. Like this is a real company. And that was probably the moment I felt like it was a real business.
Good. I have FOMO that I missed out on goodr stock. Which, by the way, I appreciate. There's a lot of like little concert series and events and stuff like that. I feel like more need to bring stock back. Like that. I feel like that was kind of lost.
I mean, it's funny. I have to actually be like, "What's goodr stock?" I'm like, "Well, you like Woodstock, goodr stock?" People are like, "Oh yeah, maybe it's more of like my parents."
Now there's probably some people that are like, "Oh, what is Woodstock?" Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. Oh, for sure.
So besides that initial like research that you did, where you got those key criteria of like what people actually wanted of the future to be goodr, what went into like the actual and like classic designs that are now like staples for goodr?
Yeah, I think that the OG, which is kind of like that Wayfarer look, which is just an iconic shape in general. That was.
But by the way, is Wayfarer, is that the name of the shape, or was that a brand?
That's
Wayfarer?
the name of the shape. Yeah.
Okay.
It is the name of it is known as the Wayfarer shape. It is. I'm sure it is trademarked by somebody. It's for sure not trademarked by us. But it was that kind of initial type of Wayfarer is it, and so we targeted that look because we knew it was just so iconic. It is the masses, and so for us it was like, okay, target here, let's go. The really interesting thing is we identified the $25 price point. We said, hey, if we could bring a pair of sunglasses to market at $25, we believe it will take the decision-making process out of the customer's mind, right? We're used to paying eyewear is expensive, $100, $200, but you see something that you like for $25, I can't get it quick enough. And so we worked backwards from that, and the OG, originally we wanted to put like silicone inserts. So now we have models that are $35, but to do that was an extra tool, that was an extra pricing. So we had to say no. And what was really beautiful is we had a constraint. We knew it was sunglasses. We knew the price point, and so it allowed us to say no to things really, really quickly. And I think so instead, if you've ever filled our goodr, there's like this almost like a rubber grip coating. Super snug fit so they don't bounce, rubber grip coating so they won't slip. And so limiting the rules of the game is actually really a really clarifying and easy experience. I recommend anybody like this is the bare minimum. So that's what we did, and then we went through the process of sampling it out, and it took about 6 months back and forth with manufacturers.
And that had to be really easy finding a manufacturer for this totally new brand, right?
Yeah. It's the hardest. I mean, it is one of the hardest things we ever had to do. Finding a manufacturer with no like connections in that world. We couldn't have started goodr. We started in 2015. We could have started it in 95. I mean, I don't know what you do. You fly to, but you had to fly. Like you have to fly overseas and find manufacturers. Now with the internet and any number of resources out there, it's a lot easier. So we've gotten very lucky in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that's probably how it worked. Like you just fly overseas, pick a random country that's known for manufacturing, and get out your binoculars and just see what you find. But
walk on the street. Does anybody make sunglasses? Does anybody make? No. I'm sure you know.
True story.
I think that there back in the day, you found a friend. I guess you would track it back, a friend of a friend of a friend. Who do you know in that world that can make you an introduction?
Absolutely. And so that $25 price point is gold. Goodr gold, we'll call it.
Yep.
I think that's one of the things that I love most about your brand. Like, in addition to all the funness and the 4Fs and the how they look great, the fact that they're such high quality and usable for a price point like that is a total game changer. Because I've always, like yourself, like I've always been somebody who would get like, you know, either the super, I mean, actually, no, I would get the like super cheap pair of shades from like CVS, Walgreens, whatever. And it would be totally fine until like pretty soon after. I mean, I was probably going through like 3 or 4 pairs of shades a year because they would like break in my backpack or something like that. Like it just wasn't sustainable. And then on the other flip end of that, like I remember going to the mall one time and looking at, I don't know, one of those sunglass providers at the mall and being like, oh, these are pretty cool. And then picking up and seeing that the price point was like $250 or $300. I was like, no fucking way are people spending this much on sunglasses. So like you hit a really, really great area there. How did you come up with that number of 25 that you still, I mean, now with 35 as well, but 25, 35 that you've like stuck really rigid to?
Yeah, man, I don't have a clever answer for this.
That was pretty clever, actually. That was good.
Yeah, I mean, we knew we didn't want to do there was, if you notice our pricing is $25.35, it's not $24.99. We're like pretty gangster about that because I just think that's a weird parlor trick.
You should do $25.01 just to like really stick it to them.
Yeah, we'll really drive the margin up. But it was hey, I actually don't remember how we came up with that number, but it was when it happened, like, yeah, $25 feels right. And it's weird because 30 feels too expensive, 20 feels too cheap, 25 feels right. And when you say it that way, people are like, that's weird. It kind of does. That does make sense, weirdly.
Yeah, it does. It does feel just right. We got the, what is that? 3 Goldilocks and the 3 Bears?
Yeah, the 3 Bears.
Speaking of that, like what went into incorporating animals and just like the fun kind of pina colada vibes of goodr together?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that felt from the beginning was we wanted to create a brand that was just fun, irreverent, and absurd and didn't take ourselves too seriously. And so when your name's the misspelling of a grammatically incorrect word, goodr, it's really hard to take yourself too seriously. So you start from that origin. And when the first pair of glasses that I wanted when we had the idea for the brand, it was burned into my mind, was the flamingos on a booze cruise, which is our staple. It's like the pink with teal lens. If you're watching, you can see me holding up. It's on the top of our shop at Abercrombie. It is the brand in a glass. It is my favorite pair of glasses. But we get this back, and I still remember it as clear as day. I pulled the golden samples out, and I put it on. I'm like, oh, these things look like you're on a booze cruise with a flamingo. In fact, we're going to call this we're gonna call this color Flamingos on a Booze Cruise. We're gonna name all of our colorways crazy names. And my partner Ben's like, sure, Stephen, because he has to humor me. And then that's what we did. The original 6, were Flamingos on a Booze Cruise, Swedish Meatball Hangover, Ice by Yeti, Whiskey Shots of Satan, Donkey Goggles, Sunbathing with Wizards. And that was, we had the idea in 30 seconds and ran with it. And so creativity can come anywhere. Trust your gut. So now all of our product has really fun names, and it kind of set the tone for us having fun, being irreverent, being absurd, also differentiating ourselves from other brands in the market.
And the ones that my wife gifted me are these, I would call them like black or matte.
Black on black?
Black ones. And what's the name again? Something unicorn?
Unicorn's Calamity.
Unicorn's Calamity. So that's gooder in a nutshell, is like take something that like, I'm like a very boring, like I am like, my clothes are like navy, black, like that's it. And, and so like Dana knew that like if she was going to get me shades, they had to be like the black, quote unquote, boring ones. But they're not boring. They're awesome. And then with a name like that, it's just it's just proof of how cool of a company it is. But how about the animals? Like you incorporate flamingos in the name and designs and everything. Where did the animals come into the fun?
Yeah, well, the name, so Flamingos on a Booze Cruise was the first name, but so that started, and when we started having people, we actually let people still to this day. Everybody has like their lame title that is to the outside world, because like everybody has to know what that is, but then everybody here gets to make up their own title, so it can be whatever. So my spirit animal is an octopus, chief executive octopus. Like I have to be known as CEO to the outside world, otherwise people would be like, who the fuck is this person? So it just worked out. My spirit animal, I could replace officer with octopus. And it's just kind of been, the brand was based off Ben and Carrie, my 2 co-founders, humor, personality. So you work in animals in any number of ways. Yeah, it just kind of happened organically.
Organic has multiple meanings there. With wild animals like that, how do you know? Like, I feel like some people are like, oh, this is my spirit animal. Or like, we'll talk about somebody famous and be like, Yas, that's my spirit animal. But like for you, what was it about octopus? Wow, I really butchered that
octopuses.
One. Yeah, which I learned they're actually octopus, right? They're octopuses.
Well, you can say either one. Either one's correct. Octopuses, octopi.
What is it about them that part of my language, but sucked onto you?
They are. I find them I think they're incredibly unique. I have to have my hands in everything. So like the idea of 8 tentacles, I love. I just like I am always doing multiple things at once, and they're world-class problem solvers, and I am a world-class problem solver.
Well, I have to shout out my college roommate Tyreek, who I've done this on the podcast before, but it's never been more relevant than this. He used to use the term when you're carrying, like when you're trying to carry all your bags of groceries at the same time. He said, "Oh, just octopus that motherfucker." And so like that's what you do for your full-time job. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I do. I octopus that motherfucker.
So working on the designs is one thing, and obviously you keep innovating them. And then, if you check out your site at any time of year, you'll see like different seasonal ones or different celebration designs. So it's really cool, very aesthetically pleasing there. How have you been able to grow the team over time? Because at the start it was, just a few of you guys, obviously very easy to have your personality flow through to the brand. But now you said 150 employees. Congrats on that. 150 employees. You're coming up on 10 years in business. What's been your secret sauce for growing gooder?
Well, in a couple of last year, I was at a friend's wedding, or 2 years ago, and there was a sleight of hand magician walking around doing tricks tableside. And I'm a child, so I love magic. And this magician does an incredible trick that blows my mind. And then he said the most incredible thing to me. He said, "Do you want to know how I did it?" I'm like, "Absolutely." Proceeds to walk me through how he did this trick. And he shows me how he taught himself dexterity with his pinky. So he could pull a card out of the deck with just his pinky, put it up his sleeve while he's like, sleight of hand, and then put it back. And I'm watching him do it. I'm like, this is incredible. And I asked, "How many times did you have to do that to get it down?" He's like, "Oh, I don't even know. I can't even, I go like 500 or 1,000. And he said more like 10,000. And that was the moment I realized magic does not just happen, it is created through fundamental excellence. There is zero secret sauce in goodr. It is just, we are fundamentally excellent. We have been from the beginning. We got very lucky. We work really hard. We have a lot of process, and you get lucky again, and so on and so forth. But we've never done anything perfect. We just do multiple things really well continuously, and we make so many mistakes. It's not even funny. And so I don't know. So there is just no secret sauce. I think if I was to drive back our prime strategy, it is just that.
How do you know, like, what do you have kind of like an internal rule of like, all right, now we're ready to hire a new flock of flamingos?
Oh, I mean, at the beginning it was very informal. We kind of had hired, we needed a person to do this. I think we got to about 30. My dream at the beginning was to run a completely flat company where there wasn't any bosses. And everybody reported to me until we were about 30 people. And I was like, well, this doesn't work. And so we had to create teams. So it was for a while, what do we need? And then now it's, we're very strategic about it. We evolve all the time. All right, where's the brand going? X, Y, and Z. So we are thinking about it. We have a leadership summit every quarter where we're looking towards the future, and we call them strategic initiatives. So we invest in a team strategically and then build it over time.
And what was that moment like for you? Like when you had the flat structure, and then it's like, oh my God, 30, like I need 30 tentacles, not 8 tentacles for all this. What was it? What was the point, or like, even maybe it's even like a rock bottom moment of like, okay, I need to make a change to the structure here?
Yeah, I think that you could run a company completely flat if you had everybody you hired was next level. I mean, I can name 10 people that work here. I'm like, well, if I had, if everybody was like these people, you wouldn't need bosses. And what you realize is that's a fantasy. And so I want to just acknowledge that. Number two, the bigger we got, realizing like, oh, there is a reason there is some type of structure in org throughout time, and I was just getting pulled way, way, way too thin. I don't have this like rock bottom moment. I mean, I would say numerous times when you're starting a company like this, you get any entrepreneur will pull yourself thin. And so the practice is understanding, okay, this is thin, time to stop what you're doing because this is not working and need to do something else. And so this was just one of those moments.
So speaking of stretching you too thin, no, I'm just kidding. But would love to dive in a little bit more to the awesome culture you have. Like there's been lots and lots of coverage and people just talking about like how cool your brand is, but also how cool internally your company is, and how I know you got like awards for coolest places to work, things like that, yada, yada, yada. Congrats on all that. But can you share some of kind of like your guiding principles, or like what makes you and goodr unique from, or what makes goodr unique from a culture sense that's allowed you to grow this way?
Yeah, I mean, our two core values are fun and authenticity, and we define fun as celebrating the work over the results, and we define authenticity as liking who you are as part of this brand. And we have hundreds of actual supporting and slippery behaviors for each, right? So we're very explicit about what this means. They're not just like bullshit words. And I think at the core, if you kind of unpack those two things, you need to love the work here at goodr. We're not a party brand. We're a fun brand. And we think fun is celebrating the work over the results. And so goodr is actually not an easy place to work. I think that if you like work, you like challenging, if you like solving hard problems, you like changing very, very quickly, it could be the best job you ever had in your life. But if you don't, you're going to be miserable here. And so I think that's important. You just have to love doing work, be driven with patience. And then from an authenticity side, liking who you are as part of this brand. Man, I don't want anybody ever to have the Sunday scaries or be miserable. I think it's okay to have, 5 or 10% of your job you can be annoyed by because you're like, well, this is just bullshit I have to do. That's fine. But I think anything over that, I've done a talk about this recently with the company. I'm like, if 20% of your job you find miserable, you got to find a new job. because that is 1 day a week you're miserable. That is not sustainable. And so I think if you those two things and it being okay with like, hey, man, goodr is great for some people for a while and then it's not, and that is okay. So I think that the two things that we just lead with are fun and authenticity, and I can go like down even further, but it starts there.
I like that thought that if even 20% of your job is miserable, it's not like you should look elsewhere. And I think like too often people get sucked into that, and it's actually, well, all their job is miserable, or most of their job's miserable, but they don't feel comfortable jumping elsewhere. What tweaks or little slippery things, as you said before, have you made? Like, what have you fine tuned within the company to make sure that like we are not a miserable place to work? In fact, like people are excited to be a part of this.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it is impossible to think we're going to keep the same culture at 25 people that at 50, at 150, right? That is insane. That's a fantasy. That's not my job. My role is to evolve the culture appropriately. Mm-hmm. And so that's number one. I believe in that. In 2018, we created this thing called AMP. And AMP is, it's taken from Daniel Pink's book Drive. It stands for Autonomy, Mastery, Purpose. It is at that time, it was a quarterly performance review system. So every quarter, starting in 2018, there would be a performance review with a person and their leader. And I sat in every single one for everyone in the company for the first 4 years. And so that I think for the first 2008, first 4 or 5 years. So every quarter we would evolve this, Max. So like tiny, oh, you know what? This way. And what we learned is, all right, feedback's important. Making sure people are on the same page is important. And we tweak that every time. Now we don't work in the quarter system. We work in the trimester system because we did it for so long. We're like, we don't have to do this every quarter. Now we do it every trimester, but we continually tweak it. Like that's one small example, but everything that we have here is on the table to change, and we do change it. We do not believe in like the sunk cost fallacy. So that's kind of that there's so many things, but like that's a really good one to kind of that we still change every single trimester.
Yeah, that evolving. I mean, that's tough to do. That's tough for any size business to do. How do you stay nimble, no matter how big you get as a company, in terms of evolving appropriately?
Man, one, you better have leadership that is okay changing. I mean, I will turn the time.
Well, thankfully for you, that sounds like that's good.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, we change very quickly. We move fast. If goodr running a company of 50 people versus 150 people isn't like 3 times as hard. It's 10 times as hard. But I will still do a U-turn with the Titanic. I'm like, oh no, we fucked that up. Let's go. And so, man, it is a delicate balance because too much change is too hectic. I think that if you lead with emotional intelligence and you just kind of ask questions and listen and see what's going on, you should know. I mean, back to the AMP. Because I was in everybody's performance review for that long time, I know our business so well. I know people's roles. I understand what's going on. And so I can understand where the wind's blowing, understand when we're like, no, we need steadfast, or yeah, we need to move. And so I know the easy answer is you pay a lot of attention and you make a giant bunch of mistakes, and then you learn from those mistakes.
Do you have a process for nipping mistakes in the bud, as they say?
I mean, I'm a huge productivity person. Personally, professionally, it is something that I love doing. My simple process is, man, whenever things are bubbling up, I open up a blank note and I just do a mind dump of like, all right, well, what's going on? Boo. And then I roll through. So I go stream of consciousness. Sometimes like now with software, I'll just talk it through. And then I go back to, all right, what is the actual problem? What is the solution? What do you hope to gain from it? And then out of what you set up here, what's facts and what's feelings? Because a lot of times you realize there's less, you're mistaking facts for feelings. So I would say that mind dump, understand the problem and solution, understand what is fact and what is feeling. and then then you start to build from there. Or sometimes you realize you're like, no, there's no facts there. That's all your personal opinion. That's a fear-based personal opinion. You just need to move on. That also happens.
Yeah, another tough decision of like when to let's just cut it and go. Who because you really carve like your own path here in terms of the company overall, but especially like the vibes and culture and fun and authenticity that you talked about. But like who are some inspirations that you have that have been influential to the business leader you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I think I am constantly a sponge of absorbing content in the world.
So
I mean,
SpongeBob SquarePants.
See, SpongeBob SquarePants is number one. He's number one.
Patrick number two.
I grew up in like a lower middle class family. My dad was a golf course superintendent, and then on nights and weekends he had a landscape company, and so he always worked two jobs. And I was gifted a very strong work ethic, where in college I went to school 2 days a week and then worked 13 hours a day, 3 days a week, so I could pay for school. I started side hustles. In fact, until 2017, when I started focusing on goodr full time, I never did not have two jobs. And that's something I realized later in life. So I was gifted that work ethic from my father. So I think it starts there. And then, man, early bosses, at any number of places, were able, my first boss at this miniature golf course named Ken Chancho, then working through, worked at Easton. The president of Easton, Chris Zimmerman, he's now the president of St. Louis Blues, mentor. I actually ran him recently at a wedding. It was quite wild. Duke Stump, who was our CMO, he was a mentor. He was one that got me into professional speaking. And then, man, so many books, right? I mean, I've never met Brene Brown, but I consider her a mentor. I've been fortunate enough to talk to Seth Godin on the goodr's podcast. He's a mentor. Dan Peek's a mentor. So many people. Sometimes it's two ways. Sometimes it is just one way, but you can find mentorship anywhere. Good friend of mine, Morris Miller, is a mentor of mine right now. So yeah, I'm very fortunate in my life.
That is an all-star lineup of names that you just mentioned. Also, like literally on the name standpoint, Duke Stump might be my favorite name ever.
Strong name.
I got to research Duke, but all right, let's wrap up with a couple fun, wacky, zany segments. The first one is called The Unusual. So this is about you personally. Doesn't need to tie back to the business at all. Of course, you're welcome to if you want it. Pet peeves. What is something that just really grinds your gears or grinds your goodr gears?
Well, you're in love this, Max. People who are late to meetings. Nobody is late at meetings at goodrs. Every meeting starts and ends on time. I find it amusing when people are late to a goodr meeting that don't know what and I'm like, they don't know what they're walking into. So actually, in full transparency, I don't know how much that it's a standard here, but I'll say that I think timeliness. I think it's important.
Can you give us a quick impression of? Do you just like turn into Ari Gold when someone's late? Like what does that look?
No, well, the thing is everybody. I mean, I'm still late to meetings, right? Something happens, but anybody who's late to a meeting here, they are coming in, they are hustling, and they're like, "I'm sorry," So it still happens to me, but nobody's casually sauntering in, wait for me. No, so I think the really interesting thing is during onboarding, there's a moment of day one. It's like, hey, I think we say you're on time to meetings. Just to be clear, like don't be on time to meetings. But nobody gets yelled at. Everybody here actually is pretty into it.
Awesome. And then maybe everybody's spirit animal is a cheetah, so they could be super fast, or whatever bird is the super fastest.
Or an alarm clock.
That's a great spirit animal as well. All right. What? How about weird talents or party tricks? Like something that you just have a really good knack for, but it really doesn't impact your day-to-day at all.
Oh man, that's weird. I mean, doesn't impact my day-to-day.
Well, it doesn't. Like it has pretty minuscule impact.
I mean, I I can give I cut my own hair. I mean, I get my hair cut every other week, but then I cut my hair in between. So I can give myself a self fade.
Oh,
So I can like fade
well,
my entire
congrats! It looks fantastic. Awesome.
So I mean
I could learn
but
a
that
thing or
kind of
two.
does affect my day to day.
Technically, I trim this little colic on the swirl, as they call it, up top
Nice.
too. So
That's great.
I have like the kindergarten version of what you do. So perfect. All right, and then quirks. What's something a little bit quirky about your personality that friends, family, team, somebody calls you out for, but it's who you are. You're not changing.
Oh man, I mean, I'm pretty impatient, and I am a planner. Like I plan everything. And this fun thing happens with people. If like I have to like wait in line, somebody like, oh, are you gonna be okay, buddy? You're, and so that for sure. Impatience or planning.
I was gonna guess you were overly patient based on your policy about being late to meetings, but I totally got that wrong. All right, let's wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get wild. The 100 miler you said was at Zion, correct?
Correct.
Which I always don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, so thank you for confirming me stealthily there. But what is the, like, as part of that crazy run and race, what was the most beautiful sight of just nature you saw there?
It was probably watching the sun come up because at that time over the desert, I was with my friend Andres. At that moment, I was far enough in the race where I'm like this. I'm gonna do this. This is good. At this moment, this is going to happen. So that was really cool.
Real quick on that, do you hallucinate at all when you're running for that long? Like, does any weird woo-woo stuff happen in your head?
I'm sure to certain people, not for me. I'm more like, yeah, I wish I hallucinated. I wish I wasn't just
be entertaining. Yeah, exactly. All right. You mentioned that you worked at Easton, which I always thought was a really cool company growing up. Like, I love playing baseball. And what is something about being in the baseball, softball gear business, or softball gear business, as I said, that most people would be surprised to hear?
I mean, the surprise to hear. I think that how the bats are. I don't even. I'm trying to think here. What is what
it sounds like a prequel to The Dark Knight right there, but yeah, baseball bats.
I don't know. Well, I was talking about baseball bats, but I mean, I don't know if they're surprised to hear. I mean, baseball bats drive the business. They're they're the most profitable thing, and so that was very, very real decent. They were the king product. I think people could probably get there, but hands down the most important product.
Yeah, well, they literally drive in runs as well, so it makes sense. Baseball puns aside, you mentioned that goodr is your sixth business that you started or been a part of since the early stages. Of those 5 before that, what's like the most random, or people would be like, you did what?
Oh, I mean, the first one started industrial water treatment systems. So $200,000 water treatment systems for golf courses, use ozone gas to clean irrigation water. I know so much about water, irrigation, gas diffusion. It's insane.
I had a feeling we were going to get to gas diffusion in this. I didn't know when, but here we are.
I can explain the O3 molecule and how it works and how it attaches itself to anti-radicals and bore you to fucking death.
I love it. That's what we're here for. And then you have a really, really cool brick and mortar location, the Cabana, which I figured just from your brand that it was going to be pretty cool looking, but then I searched it on Google and it has some of the biggest pairs of goodrs I've ever seen. So it's awesome. But what was the what's the coolest thing that having a brick and mortar store has provided for you?
Yeah, well, the pair on top is 14 feet wide. We do have one pair that's 20 feet wide that hangs in the office, but it is the photograph that's on Abbot Kinney in LA and Venice. It is the photograph and text from random people that I have not heard from for any number of times. And they're like, holy shit. Because it is an experience when you go there.
Awesome. They got to get you digitized in the next version of Grand Theft Auto. That'd be perfect.
That'd be incredible, actually.
And then last one, we know you're a spirit animal. What's your advice for anyone to find the correct spirit animal for themselves? Oh,
I mean, I don't know. I'm not an aficionado there.
You're not a whisperer?
I'm not a whisperer. It's got to speak to you. And also, I'd be very clear, my favorite animal is a basset hound. I'm a basset hound man. Our number one pairing sunglasses of all time is Bosley's Basset Hound Dream. It's the tortoise shell. We call it hound shell. And so your favorite animal and your spirit animal are not necessarily the same thing.
Rules that I learned in business school as well. So thank you.
Yeah.
No. Stephen, thank you so much. This has been awesome. You have fully did a 180 on me. I never liked the term lease before, and now I love the term lease. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for coming on. I know if people want to learn more, they can check out goodr.com. That's GOODR. As well as check out your podcast, which is awesome, all about culture of goodr. So fantastic stuff there. Anything else you want to shout? Like if somebody wants to connect with you personally online, where's the best place for that?
LinkedIn or Instagram at Stephen Lease. And yeah, listen to the podcast at Culture Goodr.
Fantastic. And then last thing, it could be an animal impression. It could be a quote, words to live by, whatever you want. Final thoughts, just send us home here, short and sweet.
Ooh, well, one thing I've learned as the CEO, leader of a company is you can either choose to be happy or choose to be right. And quite frankly, I would choose to be happy most of the time. Being right is overhyped.
Bring on the bongos!